Hello and welcome to This Week at the Movies. And this week we're going to see how much pain we can endure, Eric. Are you excited?
Yeah.
Either that or people looked at the title and thought we were really embracing an older Green Day album.
Yeah.
I can't remember which Green Day album it is, but one of their songs is called Novocaine.
Mm.
But we will be talking about the film Novocaine, not the
Oh, nice.
not the Green Day song, but the new action film starring Jack Quaid. It has been a big start to the year for Jack Quaid, who was also the star of Companion, which was probably one of the better early releases in uh, January. But here he plays kind of mild mannered bank assistant manager who has lived his life a little bit sheltered because he has a special condition where he cannot feel pain. And I thought one of the interesting things that the movie did is while you would immediately leap to the kind of superhero esque qualities, which is a little bit how they market it and how they talk about it later, I thought the interesting part at the beginning was his vulnerability and talking about growing up, all the downsides, like you wouldn't know if you damaged your internal organs
Yep.
we're going to bleed out, or he has never really eaten solid food for fear he might
Uh-huh.
bite his own tongue off and not realize it and swallow it, or lose a tooth, or kind of has led him to lead somewhat of a sheltered life, but his condition made him a punching bag at school, probably literally and metaphorically. And he's been kind of alone and isolated, but he develops a crush on Sherry, played by Amber Midthunder, who I will always remember from the Marvel adaptation on FX that now I lost its name, but she was also in Prey, um,
Hmm.
which supposedly they're working on a sequel to, so we shall see. But they kind of get closer. They have a magical night together. He's on the cusp of expressing his desire to make this a full blown relationship. When wouldn't you know, his bank gets robbed. I will also say this is an early March film that is also a Christmas movie, for which I have mixed feelings. This is decidedly not the Christmas season. It kind of makes me wonder if they had thought about putting this one out in November and then just dropped it into the middle of March and said YOLO. Um, but after Sherry is taken hostage by the robbers, our friend Jack Quaid decides to throw caution to the wind, uh, because when you find that one person in your life that gives your life meaning, nothing else matters, and decides to go on the most insane rescue mission of all time. Fortunately, he has Spider-Man's best friend as his own best friend, which was very helpful. And this is kind of a wild action movie. The trailer you're watching, you're hoping for some good action scenes and some good comedy. I think you get that here. In my personal opinion, I would have liked them to tighten it up a little bit. I think there are some places they could have tightened it up. There are also sometimes, as you and I talked about slightly before, where it might be nicer if they had steered more into a lighthearted approach to some of the violence and action. But I really like Jack Quaid here. I think he really sells it. And I honestly, this film, it really, you have to get a lot out of that first 15 or 20 minutes of forming a big connection
Hmm.
between Jack Quaid and Amber Midthunder. And I thought they did that very well. You buy into the idea that Nathan Kane and Sherry have something of a connection that would each have them risk something that had been important and foundational in their life before they met. And I had fun with this one. I'm giving it a mild thumbs up. I think it is pretty much what you're expecting if you saw the trailer.
Hmm.
Um, it was a it was a fun watch. I went on a Saturday night preview screening. Everybody was chuckling, seemed genuinely happy. I thought it was worth my time checking out. And sometimes at this time of year, and when you get into the summer, that's what you're looking for, is a good escapist time. I do. This has been a great year for Jack Quaid so far. I'm excited to see what he does next. But what did you think of this one, Eric?
So, I agree with a lot of what you were saying. I think it's a bummer that if you watch the trailer for this movie before you go into it, that you have most of the moments of like what crazy painful thing is going to happen to him next spoiled for you. Um, I this movie it sometimes was written in such a smart way that when it is not written smart, it kind of irked me and it made my brain kind of overthink some things that I wish I could just sit back and not think about. Like uh the writing of the scene where Sherry endears herself to Jack Quaid by helping get revenge on a bully of his for middle school, where he points out like, wow, you're a really good actor, you're really able to connect with people, and the way that this foreshadows what's going to happen, later on in the movie. Like I thought it was really clever character development. I thought it was really smartly done. And then you have a scene where he's in the back of an ambulance and he's ramping up talking to this guy so that he can use clear as a pun so that he can use a defibrillator. And I'm like, who is this for? Like it's just you in the back of the ambulance with the guy. Why?
It's for the dude bros who brought their dates that are too sharp for them. They appreciated the setup humor, and those guys were like, "Clear, that is it."
I mean, if Jacob Batalon had like been in the ambulance with him, so we got a little bit more of him, and he was helping him set that up, and he was signaling it to him, I could buy into a moment like that a lot better. But my biggest thing was Sherry. My like I wanted a little more Jacob Batalon, but like the thing that started to irk me is partway through the movie they start talking about how she's been on these. I'm just gonna, spoilers because it just came out.
Yeah, no, I mean,
she's been on these crimes with her brother for so long that she's noticed a trend of him continuing to kill people when they don't want them to kill people. Which means she's been involved heavily enough that she's on with this plot to completely abandon her life with the money that they take from this getaway. And they're going to go south on a boat and they're going to be gone. But at the same time, she knows the waitress at the lunch diner that she takes him to well enough that she recognizes she's not just recognized by, the person who owns the place or whatever, like she's a regular. She recognizes one of the waitresses who works there and they know her and is like, hey, you're very lucky. Our special cherry pie that you know about is here. And it's like, she's very well tied into that community. At the bar, she knows the bartender well enough that the bartender is willing to help her burn and essentially poison a guy and then make the guy pay for it at her suggestion.
Sounds like though that she's been like their inside man. So nobody probably would have associated her necessarily with these.
Maybe, but that's the thing. She has to have had a background check clear enough for her to get the job at the credit union. And, it's also...
Can I just say, I was incredibly relieved when she said brother, even though they don't look like, must be adopted, because for a while, I thought it was going to be like Reindeer Games. I don't know if you've ever seen Reindeer Games.
No.
But Reindeer Games is similar that Charlize Theron hooks Ben Affleck and they use him as a pawn for this robbery. Turns out she's associated with the crew, but the leader of the crew, which was Gary Sinise in that case, was her lover. And I was like, this is going to be a real bummer. And then she said brother, and I'm like, we're still in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, they do such a good job of making you root for their relationship that despite what happens, you're trying to figure out like, wait, how is this still going to work? And that's the thing. She when at the end when Nathan Kane is strapped up to the machine and the doctor comes in and says like, hey, I want you to know with the list of crimes that you've done just in this one spree, you could be in jail till you're twice as old as I am. Yeah. But whatever Sherry has done, it only puts her in jail for 1 year and 8 months.
Well, I think she probably got some kind of a deal for cooperating because at the end she clearly helps.
I mean, everyone she could have cooperated to. Well, that's
she
probably
killed her brother.
Fair.
It's to stop him.
Yeah. but even that struck weird to me because the idea is like it seems like a very movie thing for a cop to go, screw it. At this point, it's time to start killing people instead of trying to arrest
Well,
people
I
and
do
like
want to give
call
a
for
shout
backup.
out. I forgot. You don't. They're not a huge part of the story, but Betty Gabriel and Matt Walsh play the twin
Yeah,
detectives on the
yeah, they're
case,
great.
and Matt Walsh in particular had some fantastic line readings, and he got the unkindest ending for his
Yeah,
character. That was one of the genuinely like, oh,
shocking. Yeah,
like I was like, oh, what?
yeah, like come on. But but yeah, like it's just that's what it is this movie sometimes played with being this larger than life excusable movie, especially with the insane amount of violence that happens to Nathan Kane, that he's still able to walk around and be functional. But the only person who takes more damage than him and can still walk around and be incredibly functional is the bad guy for no reason. And it was insane watching him go over from like beating to gunshot to beating to defibrillator to the head to crashed ambulance to another gunshot, and he's still just like super roided out. And it was just it was kind of frustrating at a certain point. At a certain point, the tension went away, and it started to become like, okay, come on, like. But I love the notion that Sherry and Nathan Kane like saved each other, and like how he does his tattoo.
Well, that's they. I mean, there was a beautiful, before you get to the robbery or anything, when they're ending, um, when they're on their date, some of their exchanges of ideas and vulnerabilities are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they did a really good job in like a 5 to 10 minute sequence on a first date, connect that you were able to feel that connection. Both the actors did a nice job, but the writing to show that they got each other a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I just kind of wish, kind of like you said, that they had tightened up the pace and then maybe ramped up more of the sequences of violence to be a little bit more larger than life also.
Mm.
There
More
was
slapsticky and
definitely,
less
yeah, there was definitely moments of it where it's like slapsticky and it's like over the top.
like
Like,
after he accidentally well, not I mean after he shoots that first guy and then
yeah,
like boots all over the floor.
vomits.
That felt like a very earnest human reaction. I
Yeah,
think the and the stuff in the booby trap house, I thought all that worked. I think the part that really drug the most for
I just
me
wish it had been
was,
quicker.
yeah, getting to it quicker would have been, we probably didn't need to see two or three, like 4 or 5 different
Mhm.
booby traps. I got the idea after the first one and then their interaction and stuff. But I think the part that drug for me the most was when he goes to see the tattoo artist, because that one was a little darker and felt a
Mm.
lot more,
Grungy.
yeah,
I I was fine with it. I appreciated it. It did. It kind of spoke to him having this like kind of like dark edge to him that makes you think for a second, like, is this a gray area, like moral? Like, I don't know. He's already a guy who's willing to just like go against the cops and do what he's gonna do. Um, I just really needed to see a tattoo like that getting scratched out this week. I just I think I enjoyed that a little bit too much because of not because of the movie. Um but yeah, that scene sticks out a little bit weird. But at the same time, he's also, I love when they tie in like his character is so used to that as a tool
yeah.
that he's using it to carve the address into his name. He's trying to be clever with the information that he's getting. It's not really working. I like what they're doing. It's
That
just,
did lead to one of the funny things when he gets caught at the other house. He's like, "Well, I just picked this house at random." Oh, really? Why is the address tattooed on your?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, right.
Um, and yeah, and I think you mentioned this before, but like, slamming his hands on glass in order to turn his hands into Wolverine hands probably
Well, and
would have
then
started
like
enough blood
punching
loss.
that guy's eyes out was kind of gross.
Yeah, like, yeah, it was definitely more R-rated than I thought. When I
Yeah.
realized that it had its R rating strictly because of the violence, it's not very curse wordy. There's no nudity. It earns its rating in violence.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, I just wish you'd go a little more wild with it. But yeah, he's dead. Novocaine is dead. Like, there's no somewhere halfway through this movie he died, and the rest of it is a fever dream. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Blood loss, trauma,
yeah.
something like that.
Mhm.
Well, what did you end up giving?
Oh, I'm giving it one thumb up.
That's how I was kind of like
Yeah,
like not a one enthusiast, but it's what you
yeah.
think it is, and it's fairly entertaining for that.
Its
And
trailer really sold what it was. I
yeah,
think you're pretty well prepared.
yeah. Well, and if you want the at-home version, it's turning 25 this year. You could look for Reindeer Games, another heist movie that is also decidedly Christmas themed.
Oh,
That has one of
yeah.
Ben Affleck's best lines of all time.
What is it?
So I told you in that one, Charlize Theron is the woman who kind of
The
tricks him
Sherry. Yeah.
when he figures that out. Um, but she's obviously having an affair with the guy. I think it's been a while since I've seen it. I think that movie, literally, I saw it in college. Um, she at first says it's like her brother because they're pulling this heist together, but then it's really that they're lovers. And but she looks at Ben Affleck and she's like, "Well, but wasn't I good to you?" And he looks at her with a straight face and says, "I had better sex in prison."
No. Oh. Wait, who he says that to her?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, I mean, again, you have to think
Oh.
19 or 20-year-old me saw this in the theater, and I've never forgotten that moment. So I wouldn't call it a good movie. Novocaine is better.
Okay.
But there are some things that just stick with you.
Oh my gosh.
That would be one of them.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go back to some of our small screen series as we did last week. So it is time this week, the penultimate episode of the season of Severance. We do actually see all of the characters in the credits appear in this episode, which some might call progress after a couple of bottle episodes that were very focused. We know Cold Harbor is coming next week and is going to be a 75-minute finale. And we don't know a lot more about what's going to happen in that finale than we did before this episode started. There were some nice character beats here. I guess we didn't see all the characters, so we didn't see Gemma in this episode. So I take it back.
We saw where she is. We technically saw her over a monitor.
Yeah. But he had some nice character beats, even for Mr. Milchick. We had some nice time of John Turturro and Christopher Walken together, which is always delightful. Patricia Arquette and Mark back together, which had some funny lines and some funny back and forth. Some heartbreaking moments. I would say this was a little bit of a sadder episode from maybe the ships that we have for some of the characters.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Yeah.
Tough for Inizak. It was tough for John Turturro's character. Definitely. I'm still waiting for both sides of Mark to come together and
Yeah, I was
the
surprised.
conflict he's going to have about being in love with two people.
Mm-hmm.
Both halves of him, which we moved closer to that as this episode wraps up, but didn't quite get there. I've seen some people having a frustration that there wasn't a ton of forward progress and that there hasn't been a ton of forward progress in the last 3 or 4 episodes, which I get. But there are still some masterful craft, some masterful performance moments. I'm still really enjoying it, and I am still hyped for the finale. How about you?
Same. just like 100%. I'm still excited by the questions I have. I'm not frustrated at the lack of any of the questions that I have. Like Miss Cobell clearly was having to run Mark while he was working on Cold Harbor and knew at the time what that was going to do to Gemma.
And clearly she's very hopeful that it's not completed.
Right. So she is completely turned on some aspect of her life.
I
Like,
assume since the finale is called Cold Harbor, we might get at least a tiny bit of insight into what Cold Harbor is.
and what Cold Harbor is going to give us a lot of insight into what they do for a job at MDR. So like even just getting those questions like answered, I think is going to be a lot to like satiate what I want out of the show. But you know, I think you can only like you know, how are they gonna get Gemma out has become the what's in the hatch of Lost, I think. And you know, or honestly, you could say Cold Harbor has become what's in the hatch. In which case, at the end of season 2, you go inside the hatch.
Well, and I almost wonder with the way that 9 ended, is he going to have to make a choice when both halves of his personality come together about which of the women he's going to save?
I see. I think he's going to be a new person. I think there's a way that this wraps up in like an easy way, in which Gemma comes out as this fragmented being that wants to be with Mark but has other selves. And after whatever she's been through, from whatever car wreck or whatever she's been through, the version of her that was with the original version of Mark, those are both characters that are in a sense dead. And when they realize that they are new people, they are going to have to decide, do we still like mesh together? Is this like a love that permeates throughout all of who we are? Or Mark is going to end up being left with this merged sense of, I love this lady, but I lost her. And I love this lady, and she's still her. Because the more we get into Helly, the more there seems to be this attachment where Helena Egan does seem interested in Helly R and her choices. And, you know, I'm questioning, does she go see Mark at that diner because she's curious why her innie self fell in love with him? And is there...
I think both halves of her like Mark.
I
Because if you recall at the beginning, you know, she's watching that video, and part of it is to learn to mimic the behavior. But I think that you know, if you recontextualize the first half of that season and look at the sequences where you know she is actually Helena and the way that she is drawn to Mark, I don't think that she just seduced him in Woe's Hollow because it was expedient for her, because I don't know that it actually did help her mission or help her case. I think that that's just that she was drawn to him. Looks like I'm not the only one that
yeah. Thanks, Betty Gibbs.
But you know, there's a lot of ways that it can go. We know it's coming back. I've really enjoyed the season. I'm still disappointed we had to wait 3 years to get it. You didn't have to wait that long, but I'm very interested. So, do you have any other hopes for?
So I hope that John Turturro's not gone. I don't want to start finding out more things about his character after John Turturro's like no longer in season 3. You know, like I don't know. I just hope. It feels very final what they just did, and I really extremely doubt that we're going to leave Kier wherever it is, if it's in the U.S. or whatever, So I think he's just gone for now, and I'm kind of bummed about that. I
Which
feel like
probably means Christopher Walken being on too.
yeah, and that's the thing. I think we flirted too much with stuff going on with him for it to kind of just be over. Like if we find out without John Turturro being involved, oh, there's this person that used to call Irving on the phone. Like,
You're not the only one that thinks he's gone.
yeah, like it's I'm kind of bummed about that in a serious way. I think Dylan
They
I was
might have
saying this
put
before.
themselves into a little bit of a hole though, because his outing of Helena was
Mhm.
very important to kind of plot wise. But once you've relegated him to the outside world, there's
Yeah.
fewer things at this point until they blow up
Well,
Severance that they can do.
I'm still not sold that Bert had the authority to ship him off just now,
No, Brian Burt I thought said that he wasn't supposed to be.
giving him this chance to escape or whatever, right? But that's the
No.
thing. I'm not like if I told you, like, Matt, your job, like, you got fired for murdering somebody, and the police are going to come after you, so you need to come with me, and I'm going to put you on a train, and you got to trust that where I'm sending you is going to keep you safe. That's a really weird social dynamic. That's like a bizarre situation to be in, and I don't know.
Well, 75-minute finale. A lot of things on the table. I'm excited to see how it wraps up. And when we're back next week, we'll certainly be diving into it, talking about the season as a whole, and probably making our guesses for where we're going to go in season 3. I'm hoping, again, it's not another 3-year layoff. Otherwise, 2028 is going to be your time.
Yeah, there's a good point. Petty Gibbs has pointed out: no Miss Wong, no Dylan, no Irving, no Ragabi. Like, what is he? Who's even at Lumen? Like, what is the next episode gonna be like?
Well, what does Lumen do outside of Severance? We've never really gotten the answer.
Yeah.
Or what are some of the other weird projects they have going on down on the
Mhm.
Severance floor? Maybe they will get more information from Miss Cobell. We know Patricia Arquette's very committed, because not only is she a named credit actor, she's one of the EPs for the show.
Mhm.
Um, you know, where are they going to go? I think we're swinging to more of a focus of that's why I think there's going to be some kind of choice Mark is going to have to make
Yeah.
between those, because the one thing I will say is we left episode 9 in a weird place where Helena's father comes to find Helly, and what he said to her was not very encouraging. Could it be that both of them are in trouble?
Mm.
You know, and is Mark gonna have to choose, or is he gonna have to save them both?
And
What?
is he gonna actually integrate?
Yeah.
Because it seems like that got put on hold somehow.
Well, and our friend Petty Gibbs has a guess, and I honestly wouldn't put anything past the show, but
Yeah.
that would be a bummer.
Yeah.
Speaking of deaths, we are going to move over to Daredevil Born Again. And I'm just going to say right out now, if you have not seen episode 3, feel free to skip ahead or to pause, because I really don't think we can talk about it without talking about some of the bombshell that
Mhm.
comes down here. Um, so just a fair warning that this will definitely be a spoiler conversation. So episode 3, the trial of Hector Ayala, who we know as White Tiger. I thought was fairly compelling courtroom drama stuff.
Yep.
And I was very fascinated by a lot of that was going on. You're also building that Fisk is kind of having to deal with his wife and with his with all that's going to go on with his criminal empire. I thought the trial was pretty satisfying, very interesting. I was curious at times whether Matt was going to actually tell Hector Ayala, when he came very close to it, it felt like when he was saying, I do understand
Mm-hmm.
what this is going to.
Like,
Basically, in
I
the
think you'd be
course of the
surprised how much you don't miss it.
yeah, basically in the course of the trial, in order to have any chance at winning, Matt has to out Hector Ayala as White Tiger, which was something that he had fought hard in episode 2 to prevent from coming out. Also, I have to say, I was mildly surprised. I thought when we left episode 2, he had killed those two cops. Just the
Uh-huh.
way they did crunching and
Well,
then
yeah.
throwing the head, I thought those two
Well,
cops were dead. And when I
did we
see
see
that
both
guy
of
pop,
them?
yeah, we don't see both of them,
I
but when we see the guy kind of pop up with bruises, I was like, "Huh,
yeah.
okay." Uh, maybe that was a mystery. Maybe that was a goof.
Yeah.
But you get to that verdict, and then you get Hector Ayala stepping out, and what a bombshell at the end! We see Hector Ayala as White Tiger take a shot in the head, ending his life, and as that perpetrator walks across, you don't see a face, but you do see the Punisher skull on the shirt. So, what another pretty fascinating episode. What did you think of this week's Daredevil Born Again?
Um yeah, like Petty Gibbs just said, when they gave the verdict, I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, people are going to be so upset that he got that verdict. He's screwed. When I saw him suiting up, I had just dread in my stomach. I was like, like, and when I saw that logo, I could just already snap my brain into Fisk talking about how, well, Hector Ayala was a victim of the same lawlessness that he perpetrated. It's vigilante on vigilante crime. That's why the whole thing needs to be outlawed. And you know that he's behind it. Like, it's just there's this they're doing such a good job of building up the type of injustice that would validate a character like Daredevil. He is trying so hard and he is winning so hard to work within the system to make things work, and he is going to be broken until he has to put the suit back on. And I cannot wait to see him snap into it and to see where this is going to go. I thought this was an incredible just standalone showcase of Daredevil, of Matt Murdock being an attorney, trying to do what his best. And like, I thought they did every performance, the rest in peace, the actor for Hector Ayala. He was
Camar
incredible.
de los Reyes. We should mention an incredible job these last 2 weeks. It has come out subsequent how sick he was when he was filming this. He died. The actor died shortly after production, and I was even more moved. It's almost like the stories we got about Chadwick Boseman, and who was incredibly sick and very close to the end when he was doing Endgame, and you wouldn't have known it watching him on the screen.
Right.
Just a great performance, and quite a gift for Camar de los Reyes, who is probably a little more famous. He's done more probably video game voice work. He's done several other TV shows, but I thought that was a standout showcase. And they've given a lot of great tributes to him, but that is why I think it was either at the beginning or the end of the episode, they did a in memory of to him.
Yeah. And the croaking of the Koki, I think that was how he said it, over the credits got me a lot, like really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, this show is the thing my gut is the most obsessed with right now. I have been a fan of this character for so long, and it's like getting the strongest, most potent, clearest dose of what makes this character special and important. it's just
That's right. Like if
constantly
you
so
told
well
me
rounded.
he was going to be the leader of the Avengers, I'm
Yeah,
all in.
yeah.
Because I think we have enough time with him. This is our fourth season
Oh,
with
he
Matt Murdock,
absolutely.
and Charlie Cox. We talked about before, is so beautiful in this part, and
Um,
just the way they explore different aspects. Him. I can't remember if it was this episode or the one before where he's sitting outside the church looking
mhm,
at it. I have always appreciated the struggle between his convictions of faith and his convictions of what he needs to do with his
mhm,
skills. And we feel all of that coming to a head in this series again, and they've just done such a great job of picking up the ball and not just doing the same thing, doing something a little bit different but equally as powerful.
yeah. Mhm.
So I think it's 9 episodes for this season, 9 episodes for a second season that's already set. So we are about a third of the way through, and it's hard to believe we're only a third of the way through.
Yeah, and to your point, I think the reason that they've referenced Spider-Man again and the Punisher, um, they've done the Defenders before, and I don't know if that's the direction they would go, but there's always been this through line of characters called the Marvel Knights, which are like Ghost Rider and Moon Knight and some of the other characters. Punisher has been a part of that. But generally, it's these street level superheroes have this coordinated team that handle threats that aren't necessarily the Avengers level threats. And if they position Daredevil at the center of Mayor Fisk outlaws vigilantes, Daredevil is the Iron Man figure that stands up at the core of a new band of vigilantes. And they do, like, I'll be watching Marvel television for 10 years to get their version of Endgame, where Daredevil's like, I am Daredevil, and snaps his fingers. Like, I would love that.
Well, and we do know John Bernthal is listed on the cast list for episode 4, so I expect we are going to see Frank Castle.
Yeah.
Um,
Because he's going to be seeking revenge for whoever just did what they did.
so you don't think it was Punisher?
No, no way.
I did. I was like, "There's no way that was him either." But
Yeah. And there's but that, like, they are gonna deal with this thing that everyone who's a dirty cop so far has this logo on their neck and their arm, and
yeah,
I'm so ready for more that we got from season 2 of the Netflix show of Daredevil,
yeah.
of him just being this guy, this punk in the Marvel Cinematic Universe who always crosses the line and does not have any stopping point. He's just like dole out punishment where it sees fit. He is going to be hounding for
I was
whoever
going to
kills.
say you had me at Daredevil and Punisher. You lost me when you mentioned Ghost Rider because
Yeah,
they have yet to make a although MCU hasn't done one. Do they?
they did in
Do
Agents of
they have?
Shield. Yeah,
Then you still lost me.
yeah.
Moon Knight, I like Oscar Isaac. I'm willing to give that another shot. That series in and of itself was a little.
Some people think it's uneven. It's one of my favorites of the origin movie seasons that we got.
Yeah. I mean, it's not bad. It just, I don't know. It's not my favorite.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I do like him, and I thought there was potential with the character. I don't think they would use the Ghost Rider from Agents of Shield.
I don't think they're. I don't know
I
if they're
think
still
they,
considering
like
Agents
us, are
of
trying to
Shield.
get people to forget Agent. Well, they can't
Yeah.
entirely because Phil Coulson.
No, but
But
also
I
it could
mean,
be
Quake
another
is in there.
universe. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's our Phil Coulson though. So,
Yeah,
and they had several ties into the actual Avengers,
they
like
did, especially
and to
around
Captain
phase 2,
America uh and the
Winter
Winter
Soldier.
Soldier. So you can't entirely divorce it. They do have it streaming with the rest of the MCU on Disney Plus,
Yeah, yeah.
but they definitely went some wild ways there.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of our shared things. But before we get out of here, each of us wanted to shout out something we saw this week. I will let you go first. A classic film that you have revisited.
Yes, The Green Knight, directed by David Lowery, starring Dev Patel, is a movie that made me so uncomfortable the first time I watched it that I didn't know how to feel about it, but it has stayed in my mind for a long time. And I finally took the chance to go back and rewatch it as a story about how someone becomes someone deserving of the title of knight, someone who earns their honor and severs their ties, particularly to their mother, moving from becoming a child to becoming a man who makes their own decisions and stands for something. Um, you know, it would take me forever to go into detail, so I'll just keep it really simple. The imagery of his mother being behind him and supporting him like this entire way, it's all throughout, all the way to the point where when he is flashing forward to where he's an old man and his first child has already died, his second child is born, everyone's laying siege to the castle, and he's weighing the thoughts and consequences of what he's done with his entire life. His mom is still the same age, holding on to his shoulder. And it's not literally not until he pulls off the gift that she gives him and relieves himself of this protection that she has over him that he earns his own honor and his place. And the way this is just an episodic myth with these presented challenges, like, are you going to stand on the shoulders of giants in order to get to your destination, or are you going to walk your own path? Like, I just, it's a little squicky and uncomfortable at parts. I Not everything falls neatly into a package where I feel like it's all. I wish there was a little bit more heroics, a little bit more challenge. I feel like he's mostly just struggling and failing to live up to what a knight would do until the very end. But damn, it's powerful. It is consistently visually striking, and it's like taking a character, and maybe again this is why it resonated with me, but it's taking a character that is so ingrained in their comfort and in wanting to live how they were born and in just like wanting to not be uncomfortable, that it shows what it would take for someone to realize that in order to have a better life, in order to be a better person, I have to make myself uncomfortable. And yeah, I just really just see The Green Knight if you've never seen it.
And it's interesting. Post Green Knight, he's done a lot of like things that would probably be aimed at kids. His next feature after that was Peter Pan and Wendy, and then did an animated short called An Almost Christmas Story, and
Mm.
then was the director for the first two episodes of Star Wars Skeleton Crew.
Wow.
So kind of
Wow.
an interesting filmography jag,
Yeah.
of, following that. Well, you're going there. I am going to hit the small
Yes, Feta
screen.
Gibbs. Sorry. He said a thing. I agree.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah.
There you go. I am going to hit the small screen again for a new show that dropped on Netflix on Thursday called Adolescence. This one, a British series co-created by Stephen Graham, who is pictured there and stars in it, and Jack Thorne. It is a 4-episode limited series. Very short commitment. If you want to binge, each of the episodes is between 50 and 57 minutes. From a filmography, like film style standpoint, the fascinating thing is each of the 4 episodes is shot in one continuous shot, which gives it a very much sort of real-time feel. You're getting 4-hour snapshots over a 13-month period in the immediate aftermath of a 13-year-old boy killing a classmate. So you begin with the police kicking down the door and arresting the kid, and you see the impact on his parents. Stephen Graham plays the boy's father. And you see kind of the early stages of that investigation where he goes from saying he had nothing to do with it to them being presented evidence to the contrary, and the reaction and how that washes over his father. The second episode is the cops following up at the school and trying to figure out how this came about and what came about there. One of the police officers has a son who is in the school, and you get a little bit of the relationship there. The third episode, following the boy meeting with a counselor as part of the legal process, who is trying to get some questions answered from him, which was incredibly emotional, incredibly tense, incredibly well written, and probably my favorite episode of the series. And then the final episode, jumping to 13 months later and following the boy's family and the impact that this has had on them and the community. It is very emotional, probably very tough. I watched them kind of all in a row because once I started, I wanted to know where it was going. It is one of the best series I've seen so far this year. It is probably not for the faint of heart in terms of the content, but the film craft is exceptional and very fascinating. The writing, the performances. Stephen Graham has probably some showcases in both the first and last episode, and a stinger scene at the end of the second episode that really stuck with me. Aaron Doherty is the counselor in the third episode, gives a fantastic performance in just a one-off, in 45 minutes of a continuous shot in almost real time, building a character and an emotional connection with the audience. So something very different, probably very different than any of the things we've talked about today. But just this idea of, it touches on bullying, violence, our culture, things with kids, and the aftermath and ripple effects of one violent moment and how that can ripple through community, family, and the impact that it can have. And it was incredibly powerful. So that is on Netflix. All 4 episodes dropped on Thursday. It is available to watch. It is not an easy watch, so if you're like, it's been a long week, I'd like to throw on a comedy, this is not the show you're looking for. Abbott Elementary also had a top shelf episode this week about karaoke. So that would probably be where I would go. But if you want to see something that is, just brilliantly done, I was really moved by this. So
cool. I'd heard about this. I really appreciate you going into it.
Yeah, I watch, if you follow me on the site, I do a weekly roundup where I go through pilots, so I watch the first and second episode of almost all new scripted shows. So I watch a lot of different scripted things, but sometimes it takes your breath away a little bit, and you just, obviously pop through the whole thing the day that it dropped. Just really interesting. Next week, we will really look forward to touching on the finale of Severance, hopefully the return of Frank Castle, but we are going to cover the film Black Bag, which actually opens this Friday, so you will have a chance to see that one. That is the latest from Steven Soderbergh, written by David Koepp. Is a spy drama starring Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett, and if those things don't get you excited, I just don't know what would. So we'll look forward to talk about that. And then we are also going to talk, Netflix gives you some of the highs, but they also produce some of the big train wrecks. They had a train wreck that they released on Friday in the form of The Electric State, which was a kind of highly anticipated movie. So we will take a look at some of those things. So a lot of fun things here as we're careening our way through March. It hit, both on the big and the small screen, we're getting some pretty good content of late.
Yeah.
So
until then, we will see you guys next week at the movies.